The next one he did was Woman Times 7 that I worked on. I was an assistant director. It was shot in Paris. It was an episodic film, 7 episodes with Shirley MacLaine as the lead in each one, but not the same character, changing. And at one point, Vittorio had a gallstone attack, and in fact his gallstone was removed, a gallbladder was removed. And so he said, well, Peter can shoot it. Here I am, Shirley MacLaine, Anita Ekberg, Michael Caine, and Poiret, the great French film actor. And I'm going to direct him. He said, well, just don't move the camera too much. Move it laterally. You can pan, but not too much up and down. Try and avoid that. I don't think that's real. People don't get taller and shorter. You know, he had this theory about people can look where they want to look, but they don't get taller and shorter unless they climb up a ladder or something. You can shoot from on high, but the fact is that might be a person looking down from up high. Anyway, it was a very, very thrilling thing for me to be a little bit of his work. And an interesting thing happened. This was all done on the street, actually. When you go in the street, there was on a big-time film like this, there are trucks with generators, there's trucks with the wardrobe, there's trucks for the makeup, there's trucks with the furniture if they're going to put them in a place. There's a lot of things that shouldn't be in the shot. So I'm going to set up the very first shot, which was Michael Caine following Shirley and Anita Ekberg. He was a private detective hired by Poiret, and it was the husband and Shirley's husband, and it was a mistaken identity. She thought he was flirting with her. So anyway, that's the story. Anyway, I said, you know, it's a lot better this way, but all those trucks there. So yeah, when you move the trucks around the corner or off like that somewhere. And the cameraman, who was, I don't remember his name, I'm sorry, but a very famous French elderly cameraman said, no, that's going to be so much trouble. Now, you know, when a guy, for the most part it's worldwide, but especially in Europe, and I know in Italy and France anyway, the cameraman works, all his crew works. When he doesn't work, they may be able to slip in another job somewhere, but when he works, they work, and there is people. And his camera operator, Philippe, his eye in the camera, said, why don't you let him direct it and just leave him alone, the kid, or whatever he said in French. And this guy said, what? And he said, just leave him alone. Move the trucks. What is the difference? So this guy kind of defended me. It was wonderful, the great camaraderie of I don't know who he was against, this guy, but he was for me. That was what I liked. And Shirley was great. She loved it, and she was very game to do everything. And she and another guy and I, American, told Vittorio about Alan Arkin, the greatest actor. You should see him, Vittorio. And we got a copy of The Russians Are Coming. Remember that film? I think Carl Reiner might have directed it. Russians Are Coming. And Alan was in it, but he's playing a Russian. So Vittorio said, well, isn't he American? Yeah, he's American. Yeah, but he's, you know, Shirley was playing a French woman, and he was playing a French man. But what it was, we finally convinced them, and Alan was great. He is still great, and I love him. I think he's one of the best actors we have. They were lovers, two lovers, not married to each other, married to others, but they wanted to be married in eternity. So he was in a tuxedo, tails maybe. She was in a wedding gown, and it was a suicide pact, a double suicide pact, right? And so with two people in one room, that was the entire episode was shot there, except for the last shot was an exterior. Two people, you know that you're going to be changing, very little moving around. Most of it was played laying in bed, talking about this, not most of it, but a lot of it, like there were figures already. That's the way they're going to find them, arm-linked, husband and wife. And then this, we'll go to the bathroom, and there's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But you know that with two people, you're going to shoot one direction, let's say towards the east, all the shots. That's the way to do it, all the shots. In this maybe 15-minute episode. And then you're going to turn around and shoot all the shots this way of the particular part of the scene before or after he gets up or something like that. So right about I don't know, maybe about 11 o'clock in the morning. Oh no, because we did French time. So, but on location we shot regular hours usually. So it would be around 11, in mid-morning kind of. Vittorio said, okay, let's turn around. Whoa, I said, as assistant director, wait a minute, we got lots to go in this direction. So we'll probably be here till after lunch, I'm sure. Well, let's turn around now and do this part of it here. But that'll take 45 minutes to turn all the lights around, take all that furniture out there, put the lights there, take all this furniture and bring it in where we are now and that stuff. 45 minutes, he said, that's all I need. And he sat in a chair in the middle of them, changing the set around with all the noise and the hammering and the yelling and then the lights being changed and that stuff. Here he's sound asleep. And then he woke up, refreshed. Here we go. You know, it was great. He was a master at sleeping in odd places. He did a film called Sunflower, which was Girasoli, which was about a Russian. It was Mastroianni and Sophie Loren. And it was about some of the Italians that went to Russia where the soles of their shoes came off. I mean, it was really terrible. They went so ill-equipped for the Russian weather and taken prisoners and such. And some of them didn't come back. They just stayed and became Russian citizens kind of. And there was a scene in which Sophia goes to Russia to look for her husband, Mastroianni, who didn't come back. Naturally, if you're in Moscow, you're going to shoot the Red Square. And so one time, Vittorio turned to Rotuno, who was the camera loader, the lowest of the camera crew in Bicycle Thieves, was now and still remains one of the leading cameramen in Italy, Peppino Rotuno. He said, okay, I think what I'd like is maybe we'll do a dusk shot, we'll do a whole dolly shot, the length of Red Square. We got enough tracking, okay, we gotta put these pipes down, and they roll them. Their dollies are two wheels outside of like a train thing, you know, where they just go down these rails. And he said, okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's go. Let's give it a nice twilight look, and I'll let me know when you're ready. I'll go and take a nap. He looked out in his car, and all of a sudden the windows, and he said, what do you mean? What do you mean knocking on the window? What do you mean you're ready? How can you be ready? He said, well, I figured you'd make a shot in Red Square, so I pre-lit a lot of it, you know. So he got robbed of his sleep that night. But he did go once. They went to the Volga River or whatever. They were somewhere outdoors on a riverbank, and he was freezing. And so he was in a car, and they had, I don't think they had automatic windows at that point. They may have, maybe have, or maybe, but the Russian car he was in didn't. And so he'd roll the window down. Azione! Which means, of course, action. Then he'd roll the window up and watch it. So he'd say, stop! Which is their way of saying cut. Then roll the window back up. He'd do the next thing. Ancora, another time, do it again. It was whoop, like this anyway. Then I started actually being able to work with him. I did the subtitles of The Garden of the Finzi Contini, which was his third Oscar. He got 3 Oscars. And it was the subtitling of The Garden of the Finzi Contini, which was a film about the Jewish family and what they were having to give up in the last days as the fascists were losing, the Germans were leaving, the government was, the war was obviously going to go, we didn't know that necessarily in the story, but the fact is they were still taking Jewish people away from their homes into Germany. And it was a very touching and wonderful film. And a friend of mine, a Jewish friend of mine, came to Rome, and she said, I'd love to see that film. I heard about it and I'd love to see it. This is before it came out. And I said, well, it's in the dialect of the Ferrara, which is the city it was shot in. And she said, okay. I said, wait a minute. They told me that they made one version with subtitles because it was played in Israel for Ben Gurion and Golda Meir. And Vittorio, when I asked him, I said, oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, we went to Italy and to Israel, and they were both on either side of me sobbing. But it was a hurry up job we did. So I said, well, let me look at it. I'll show it to my friend, and we'll see it with whatever subtitles it has. It hadn't gone to New York to be sold yet. It was still an Italian film without a distribution in America. So when we saw the subtitles, the first subtitle came up was these kids on bicycles going over to the garden to play tennis. The Finzi Contini was the name of the family, Finzi-Contini. They had a tennis court on their grounds. And these kids on bicycles go to the gate to go in, and it's locked. Now, in modern times, they say, maybe they're putting us on. Maybe it's a joke. The guy whoever subtitled this said, as they're riding around to the main gate on their bike, said, must be a leg pull. You know, the English phrase of pulling someone's leg. And they turned it into a noun and made it a leg pull. I said, oh my gosh, this is awful. And later on, there was hark and alas and ancient phrasing. And someone must have learned their English in 1905 who did this. So I went back to Vittorio and I said, Vittorio, you can't take this to New York like this. You can't. It'd be laughable. You can't. And he said, well, I've only got 3 days. Do it. So I went to where they did it in those days. Now, of course, with the electronics, they just type it in and the Chiron puts the words in. Then, and I didn't know how this happened, a girl would type up the line, and she would minimize it. They do it photographically, they minimize it, and they put it on the head of some lead, like linotype, and they smack it through the print so that what you're seeing when you see the subtitle is the real projector shooting light through what's no film in that little area, and the words spell out what it is, right? So that was interesting because they have to do it backwards, so that the light comes from behind. And so we were going along, we did pretty good, and I noticed that some of the things that the man or woman, whoever it was who did it, left out were just crushing because they were the very heart of what they were being denied as citizens. And so I got some of that in, and at one point I'm going along and I'm proofreading, and she says, there's one that said, I as going downtown. What? I as going downtown, A-S. I said, no, that's an M. That's got to be, I am going downtown. Oh, what's the difference? She said. No, you understand? The M makes it a whole different word. Oh, it's one letter, she said. Who's going to know? Next, we did A Place for Lovers, which was Faye Dunaway and Marcello Mastroianni. And there was a moment before to cast her. Vittoria she came with her agent to Rome, and we went to, Carlo Ponti was the producer, and he was and Carlo Ponti, of course, is Sophia's husband. So we went to their house, which was a nice villa outside of Rome, and there she was cooking. So we're having this for lunch. She was cooking. I saw this gorgeous woman cooking, her hair and bandana, cooking away. And I understand that cooking is her favorite thing, but next to one more thing she likes better than that, and that's to play poker. Anyway, we sat there and partook of her wonderful cooking. And then when we went to, I went ahead of them to New York where they were going to do the deal with Faye. And so nothing was shot there, just to go ahead and help him. And I got there a day earlier. When I got to the airport to pick him up, here comes this guy. I mean, this is, to my idea, the leading director in films. Elegant, generous, wonderful, smiling person, and he's helpless because he can't get his shoe back on his foot. His loafer, it won't go back on. And he's holding it, he's walking off, one shoe on and one shoe, his stocking, down through TWA is big, that long archway you go through, with this shoe like, help me, help me. And so we got a spoon, I got a spoon, and we spooned him back onto it. But it was so touching because he was a great guy, and so handsome and nice, and there's millions of stories about him. They did a film called Indiscretions of an American Wife, I think it was called. It was called Stazione Termini, which means the main station in Rome, where the trains end. And they couldn't disrupt the train. They were in the real train station, so they shot for 25 nights, at night only. They shot everything. For day, they just light it up more. At night, they shot this. The hardships this guy went through. And I want to emphasize again how close and lucky I was to see him in all forms, because being related, when he was in Rome, most every day he had lunch at home, and then he took a nap. And when he was in younger times, my daughter's job was to go and wake him up, and then later years, his granddaughter, our daughter, would wake him up with a little espresso coffee. And he was a wonderful and family-loving person. He had two families, but that's okay. He's enough love for both of them, But the evenings he would spend elsewhere. But the daytime was at the house in Perioli, and the other one was the family in the Aventino. So, but it was, and he died in Paris, and there was a funeral there. Amy and I had separated by then, but I certainly went to the funeral, and she asked, and I went, and there were the two families, on opposite sides of the beer, So, it's almost laughable. He really had enough love for everybody. Story is that told by his assistant director. She told out of school. I'm telling out of school, where. He said goodbye to his first wife, Giuditta, Emilia's mother, and to Amy, and he was going to America on the plane for one of the first times. And he said, "I don't like airport. I don't like airport goodbyes. Plane's late, the plane's early. We'll say goodbye. Goodbye. Yeah, buon viaggio. Say thank you. Buona fortuna. Yeah. Then he goes out in the car, and he goes with his second wife to the airport, where he says goodbye. And she said, "Well, I'll come to the plane with you." In those days, you could go out to the plane with someone. No. He said, "I don't like those. Who knows? You get caught. It's like on a boat, get all ashore, going ashore. No. Just say goodbye here at the ramp, and they say goodbye." Then he went down and got on the plane and sat next to the girl he was going to America with, So who knows? One of his great writers was Zavattini. Cesare Zavattini was a famous Italian author and screenwriter and Vittorio's confidant and great collaborator. And he didn't like flying. "I don't like flying. I got a cold on flying. I had a cold on the airplane. I couldn't get over it. I couldn't get over it." And he was bald, and he wore a beret. Why he didn't wear a beret in the plane, I don't know, because a little thing that the air comes down? He didn't know you could turn it off. So he was sitting there freezing all the way from New York to Rome. "I don't like flying. You catch colds in planes, So, and did I tell him about Coppola wanting to meet him, coming to the house? One time, you can guess the year because we all know when it was, which I don't remember the exact year, but in the 70s, Francis Ford Coppola was in Sicily, making a deal to get Al Pacino out of a movie, and they gave him someone else. It was like trading a baseball trade, right? And he traded to get Pacino out, and then so he could act in The Godfather. He got him out of a film that was being made in Sicily. And so he came to Rome. And Francis's father was a musician, and he had known DeSica or the family in Naples or something. But Francis wanted to meet him. And so William Morris said, "Well, gee, Peter Baldwin's his son-in-law. You can ask him." So he called and said, "Oh, God, I'd be very happy to have you come to lunch. And he'll be here at lunch, he's here at lunch. And you can have a nice talk with him." He said, "Oh, that's great." So they came, and they reminisced about the parents knowing each other. And casually, at the end of the meeting, at the luncheon, when Francis was leaving, he said, "Listen, I want to ask you for a favor, will you? I just finished the first draft of Godfather, and it was in sheets, It wasn't even in a script form. It was script form, but it wasn't bound or like that. It was just in a box. So would you mind reading it to me? I want to have it American eyes look at it and just see, tell me what you think. Here I am, I'm reading The Godfather. First, first, evidently, unless he gave it to the stewardess on the way up, this is it, right? And I read it all night. I sat up all night reading this thing, turning the pages, putting them down. And I saw him the next day, and I returned it to him, and he said, what'd you think? I said, well, of course, it's staggeringly magnificent. I know two things, though. One is, you made me care about a family of killers and, gangsters and bad people. A family. You made me care about them. I cared about how they're going to come out. And the other thing is, if I'm ever going to kill anybody, I'll drop the gun. I swear to God, I'll drop the gun. You remember when the kid goes and kills him? He said it in the screenplay much more than Clemenza told him to drop it. Drop the gun. Remember, drop the gun? Drop the gun. In the screenplay, he says, and the character says that he must remember to drop the gun. It's like he really impressed that point. So that was the only specific I gave him. Said, you can ease off on that. We know, we got it. He's got to. The gun was taped, if you remember. There was no way to identify it, but you got to drop it because otherwise people might come in and shoot you. So anyway, but he had. Vittorio was very generous with his, meeting people or having people, and he also had his little vices. He liked to gamble, and he would. When we were in France doing that Woman Times 7, he would go to sleep when he left the set. Because also in France they do a wonderful thing. They shoot they call it French hours. Is most or a lot of the French actors also act in theater, and theater starts at 8. So they work from noon till 7:30 or up till 8, and then they go to the theater. Maybe it starts at 9, and so. You don't work in the morning. You go and you work on the set, maybe, and that's unheard of, that they would do something like that. But it would be fine for him because he would go and finish the day's work, set up maybe something about tomorrow's work, and then hop into a car and a driver, and he would fall asleep, and the driver would take him out to Deauville, where they had gambling. Because he had been, they have gambling in Paris too. There's the Étoile Club and things like that, but the guys there didn't want him to come. The croupiers themselves said, please don't come, you never win. All you do is lose, you never win. I went one time in Campione, which is in Lake Como. I went and his wife said, gotta go get him, let's go, we gotta go home. We were sleeping somewhere else, right there. And I said, okay, so I went in with him, and he said, oh, great, stay here. Okay, and I'll go in a minute, stay. And then he started to win a little bit. I said, well, I'll go out. I said, no, you're going to stay right here. And I knew that this was a driving thing. I've always even psychoanalyzed it totally wrong, probably, but that acting never was hard for him. Nothing came hard for him, you know what I mean? It was, and sometimes there's that feeling of it all came too easy, maybe he owed it some other way. I did once ask him, I said, it must be fun to play cards and that stuff, but maybe you could, go play for matches, or pennies. Just have the fun of playing. No, he says, you don't get it. You don't get it. If your life, your wife's life, your house, your car, everything, all you own is on the line on every turn of the card, and your heart's beating like a crazy person, that's what, But unfortunately, he didn't do it well enough to make money at it. So, but he would go out to Deauville because the Parisian guys didn't want him to play there because they loved him and they didn't want him to lose. In Deauville, he'd go out, sleeping in the car, and he'd get out there, gamble all night, get in the car all morning, come back in. We weren't working until noon, so it was okay. And how'd you do? I was up 50,000. I mean, that might have been old francs, but I was up 50,000. But the past tense means that it didn't end that way, I'm not up, I was up, and then I went down. Chaplin's praise was on an autographed photograph of Chaplin, and that it was in Vittorio's living room. And He was very proud of that, and he, of course, admired Chaplin a lot. However, he said secretly his favorite laugh in films was when Woody Allen was sent into solitary confinement with an insurance salesman. You remember that? They're going down the stairs into this subterranean isolation cell. What do you call it? Solitary confinement with an insurance salesman to sell them. One time he did a film called, it was an episodic film in which the directors changed. With Visconti did one, I don't know who the other guy was, maybe Franco Rossi, and Vittorio. And Clint was in that, Clint Eastwood was in it. He was playing Silvano Mangano's husband, the American husband. And as I remember the story, and I don't know for what reason, he would come home from work and read the paper and kind of ignore her, and she wanted to be. If you remember Silvano Mangano in a film called Bitter Rice, in which she's standing knee-deep in the rice field with these short Levi cutoffs on, a magnificent figure of a woman. And this film, she was kind of gaunt and stuff. She was, not on purpose. I mean, that she had become elegant throughout the years. Instead of that first film with Vittorio Gassman, and her face was tight. And so there was a scene on the Via Veneto, which is the main nightlife street, but they did a section of it in the Nomentana studio, and they had, she had to walk down this, I don't know if it was a dream or if she actually went out and walked on the Via Veneto to make him jealous or ignoring him. And Vittorio, she doesn't get it. She's got to walk in a certain way. She's got to walk. She's trying to attract men. Okay, so he got up and he has a sport coat on, and he holds it like a little, like he's a gown kind of. And he shows her how to walk, shows her the way to make her head move, shows her how to throw her one leg in front of the other, whatever it was. It was magnificent. He showed her how to be a woman. Then he came back and sat down and he said, "Que gosh," meaning in the old days when she was standing in that rice field, what thighs she had. Que gosh. He was great. He could show anyone how to do anything. He was great.